My name is Erin Elmer, and today I want to talk to you about some communication strategies for couples when one spouse has hearing loss. Let me first start out by saying that when one family member has hearing loss, it is going to affect the entire family. So who lives in your household? Is it just the two of you? Do you have children? Do you have elderly parents who live with you? Anyone who lives under the same roof is forced to communicate with each other. And when there's a break in that communication, the effects of it are going to be felt by the entire family. Now, today we are specifically talking about the marriage relationship or the relationship between you and your significant other. And this relationship is probably the closest relationship that you have with any other human. And so when there is a break in communication, like I said before, your relationship is going to feel the effects of it. In the beginning of your relationship, you probably communicated to get to know each other. And now you communicate just to get through everyday life, from talking to each other and deciding who is going to do the weekly grocery shopping, to you as the wife coming home at the end of the day and being able to communicate to your husband that you're sad and that you had a really hard day. Communication is key within a relationship, which I'm sure you have heard before. So let's talk about some everyday problems that you may be facing today or you may face in the future. So the first one is raised TV volume. In our culture, it's very common to come home at the end of a hard work day and relax in front of your favorite TV show. If this is an activity that you do with your significant other, and the person with hearing loss has to have the volume of the TV raised so high for them to be able to hear it, this could be very uncomfortable for the normal hearing spouse, and it could be anything but relaxing. You could feel embarrassed by your spouse's raised voice. If the two of you are sitting in church and the spouse with hearing loss turns to you while the pastor is preaching and asks you a question, they might be talking at a high level volume because they can't hear themselves, and you could get some awkward stares and looks from the people around you. In church, the environment is generally quiet, and so this could be embarrassing for you. You could be embarrassed by your spouse's constant requests for repeats. Maybe you guys are out to dinner and your spouse requests for the waiter or waitress to repeat the list of specials 2 or 3 times. This could be embarrassing. And you could feel just overall overwhelmed with communication responsibilities. Maybe some things that your spouse used to be able to do before they were experiencing hearing loss are now your responsibilities. Just simple things like answering the phone or answering the doorbell when it rings or interpreting for social interactions. Maybe you guys are over at a friend's house and your friend is telling you a story and you have to face directly towards your spouse's ear and repeat every word of the story directly into their ear so that they can hear what your friend is saying. This could become very tiresome. You could feel fatigued. And eventually, this could turn into resentment. And you might think, why do I have to be married to somebody with hearing loss? Why is it up to me to take care of all their responsibilities? And then this resentment could turn into guilt because ultimately you really just want to help your spouse, and so you feel guilty for feeling that way. Now, I want to talk directly to the spouse with hearing loss. These are some bigger problems that you might be facing. You could be experiencing psychological stress, also called mental stress. You could feel anxiety every time that you're in a social situation, maybe even every time you go to work. You could feel embarrassment. Maybe when you get home from work at the end of the day, the neighbor tries to have small talk with you and you just really can't hear what they're saying. Or your grandchildren might tell you stories and you're just barely catching every other word and you feel sad. You could just feel overall sadness, that you feel like you're missing out on life. Also, you could experience physical decline. You are working so hard every hour of every day to compensate for your hearing loss. And when you get home at the end of the day, you could have a headache and just overall feel exhausted. And then lastly, you could be experiencing poor social connections with old friends and new friends. Maybe you and your best friend used to go out for coffee every week at your favorite coffee house and just kind of catch up on life. Well, now when you go, it's a noisy environment and it's hard for you to understand what she is talking about and follow the conversation. And so you decide not to have those meetings anymore and you isolate yourself from your best friend. You could also just isolate yourself from making new friends. If you can't hear what they're saying, it's hard to get to know someone. And this could lead to just overall withdrawal from any social situations. All this being said, there is hope, which is what I really want to talk to you about today. I want to tell you that hearing loss does not need to lead to marital breakdown, a breakdown in your relationship with your significant other. You can develop strength and resilience that you did not have before. You may have experienced this in other areas of your life. Maybe you experience physical trauma or something emotional, and you know that you wouldn't be the person that you are today had you not went through that. And it can be the same thing for hearing loss. It is a big mountain in front of you and your spouse that you need to overcome and learn strategies to overcome. But in the end, your marriage can be stronger because of it. What can you do? What can you start doing today to overcome this mountain of hearing loss? Well, you can seek psychosocial support. Talk with someone about developing a strategy for you and your needs. Talk with a social worker or your audiologist or another clinician and make a strategy. What is a strategy? A strategy is a plan of action to achieve a goal. And your goal, in this case, is communicating better with your spouse. And then seek treatment early. If you realize that your husband has the TV very loud or the radio at an uncomfortable loudness for you and others around you, or if your wife is constantly asking you to repeat things or saying, "What? Huh?" Don't ignore these signs. Make an appointment with an audiologist and get your hearing checked. As soon as you have a hearing check, you may find out that you don't have significant hearing loss, or you may find out that you do, and then you can start to get on the road to helping yourself. An audiologist would help you find assisted listening devices that could be beneficial to you, such as a hearing aid, and your overall life could just start to improve. How can you begin effectively communicating with your spouse again? I want to talk to you about 3 strategies that you can do, and then lastly, I want to talk you through a real-life situation that you might come upon, and I want to give you some tools to hopefully help you navigate through that situation successfully. The first thing that I want to talk about is auditory training. What is auditory training? It's using auditory signal to help the patient be able to recognize speech and learn how to navigate through auditory experiences. So, simply put, it is teaching yourself how to listen and comprehend speech. Now, there are different forms of auditory training. There is a computer, where you would listen to a computerized voice. Now, a computerized voice is not a real person's voice, and it is not going to sound the same. So, is this really the best training for you to learn how to hear your spouse and others' voices just in your daily life? There is having your clinician help you with auditory training. Now, your clinician's voice is going to be highly intelligible. They are trained to speak slowly and enunciate their words. And if you are just practicing listening to them, it is not going to be the same as listening to your spouse. Now, hopefully your spouse and others will learn how to talk more effectively so that you can understand them. But all in all, they are not going to have the voice so highly intelligible like a clinician. So, what is the best option for auditory training? Well, studies have shown that one-talker audio training proves to be the best. It focuses on listening solely to your spouse talk, so that one talker is your spouse. It benefits more likely when listening to the same talker in training and then your assessment later on. Adults receiving auditory training for a single talker improved more than those using multi-talkers, so like a computer and a clinician. Word discrimination was better, and reported interactions had improved with other people. So auditory training with your audiologist or other clinician could be very helpful in helping you to learn to listen and better understand your spouse. Now let's talk about some programs. Maybe not some programs that might first come to your mind when you think about hearing loss, but these are all things dealing with relaxation. So how can you stay calm in a stressful situation? How can you stay calm in a situation where you need to be hearing what someone is saying? So yoga, meditation, progressive relaxation, and deep breathing. You have probably heard of yoga or meditation. You could go to a class for these, or you could do them in the comfort of your own home. Progressive relaxation is the tightening and relaxing of certain muscle groups. So you really have to focus on those different muscle groups, which means that you're not focusing on your hearing loss. And then deep breathing is pretty self-explanatory. So these would be things that you and your spouse could do together before going into a stressful situation like an interview or meeting new friends. And now I want to tell you what the goal attainment theory is. It is a 5-step process in which the audiologist works together with the person with hearing loss and the communication partner to define shared goals and to consider steps necessary to attain these goals. So this is something that you would do with your audiologist, and you would do it as a couple, because if I didn't say this before, hearing loss is not only the problem for the person experiencing the physical hearing loss, but it's both of you. You are doing both of you are doing this together. And so this would be really important to do together. So let's just walk through the 5 steps of the goal attainment theory. Step 1, identify situations in which you have successful communication. So this is really important. We don't want to start on a negative note, but identify some situations where you have successful communication. So this might be in the evening when the house is quiet and you and your spouse are sitting directly across from each other at the dinner table, and you can hear each other clearly and you're speaking clearly and there's no other background noise. That would be an example. Step 2, ask the person with hearing loss, what kind of problems do you experience because of your hearing loss? And then ask the communication partner, what kind of problems do you think that your spouse faces? So give each of you a chance to talk and express yourselves. And then step 3, decide together what problems you face. And then steps 4 and 5, the audiologist and the communication partner can review what success you've had, and then develop new shared goals. So this strategy could be very helpful in just learning to talk about what's going on and then making new goals together. And then with that third party person there kind of navigating through and helping you. Now that we've talked about some of the different strategies, let's talk through a real life situation. So let's say that it is your birthday and you guys are going to go out to dinner to your favorite restaurant. So the first thing you want to do in a situation like this is anticipate problems before they arise. So as soon as you sit down, inform the waiter of the hearing loss. So if it's your wife who has the hearing loss, husband, just say to the waiter, could you please talk especially slowly and face my wife when you're talking to her because she has hearing loss? This would not be inappropriate at all. Ask the waiter for a list of specials to read. So we talked about earlier requesting that the waiter or waitress repeat the specials, but if they just give you a list to read, you can just completely avoid that problem altogether. Use assisted listening devices. Do you use hearing aids? Bring them with. Make sure that you have them. Which leads us to our next thing. Bring fresh batteries, just in case the batteries in your hearing aids die. And then a couple environmental things. Sit away from the kitchen door. That's often where the waiters and waitresses are going in and out. There might be dishes clashing. And it's not a quiet place. Same thing with probably the door to outside. There's going to be people going in and out, and there's going to be outside noises. So just try to avoid sitting by the doors. And then avoid a place with loud music. Hopefully your favorite restaurant doesn't have live music every night, but if they do, sometimes try to go a different night, because that can, a lot of background noise could be really difficult to have an enjoyable time and hear your spouse. I hope that helps, and you can take these suggestions, in other situations besides just going to a restaurant. So in conclusion, I just want to say that every couple is different. You and your spouse are unique, and you guys need to figure out what works for you. Maybe 1 or 2 of these strategies you'll try out and they'll work. Maybe 1, not so much, and that's okay. But just find out what works best for you. And I know that I have thrown a lot of information at you all at once. And so because of that, I have created a brochure for you to take home and throw it on your table or stick it on your fridge so that in a couple days or next week, when you've had some time to think and process these things, you can pick it back up and kind of remember the things that we talked about. And so in the brochure, there are just the main bullets. I've simplified everything and just the main bullets of what we talked about. So I hope that could be helpful to you. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you have enjoyed.